This is the Soul Podcast, now in 3D Blu-ray. I'm King Sejong, reminding you that you can quickly convert Celsius to Fahrenheit by doubling the temperature and adding 32. And here are your hosts, Emma Kalka and Joe McPherson.
And welcome to the Soul Podcast. This is Joe.
And Emma and Pippin.
And Pippin's still there. Thank you for joining us today. It's been a long time, Emma.
I know it has been. It has been.
Yeah. Kind of missed you. But the weather's getting warm. Oh, God. I'm already talking about the weather. Am I doing this? Am I actually doing this? Yeah. So we are back and the weather is warming up. Coronavirus updates. Coronavirus restrictions have been
extended for 2 more weeks.
Extended? Well, okay.
Oh, but they are a little bit relaxed, I think, probably from the last time that we spoke. We've kind of just been languishing in this third wave since November. It's just never let up. But for like the last several weeks, we've been going back and forth between 300s and 400s with cases.
Yeah.
But they're now allowing restaurants, bars posing as restaurants, cafes, they can stay open until 10.
Okay.
I think the only change that has occurred is that they're now placing saunas and bathhouses. They're now under the 10 p.m. shutoff restriction, which they weren't before. But now they have to close at 10 p.m.
Finally. I mean, that's where a lot of outbreaks were happening, weren't they?
True. But it's one of those things like they legally cannot shut them down because there's residencies in Korea that don't actually have bathing facilities within the house. So because of that, saunas cannot shut down because for some people, and it's literally the only way that they can have access to like a bathroom.
Wow.
To bathe, maybe, and for some places, they probably don't even have like a proper toilet. So that's why saunas, even though they've had several big outbreaks with saunas, they were never able to shut them down because they fall under a sort of necessity, not like guideline, but they're necessary.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay. I didn't know that one, but yeah,
I didn't either. Not until a coworker explained it to me, because there was one day I was just like, but okay, back when, again, a lot of these outbreaks were happening at saunas, and I thought like this was just sort of like a thing people did for fun.
Yeah, and reminding everyone, when you say coworker, you work for a news organization, so someone.
Yes, I work for a Korean coworker who, I often turn to when I'm just like, I'm not sure about this thing in Korea. Can you explain it to me?
Yeah. Which,
yes, even after 13 years, there's still things that I don't know or understand.
Yeah.
Always room for improvement and learning. Just keep an open mind and all that. But this was something that I didn't know that, in a lot of places, that's why you see a lot of people using saunas, not because they're just going there to relax and do whatever. It's because that is literally the only way that they could get like a bath or a shower.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's literally
because
a public
of that,
bath.
Yeah. That's why they call them public baths.
Wow. When the name fits the description, this is interesting.
What do you know?
Wow.
There.
I get it. So do you think they're going to close churches at 10 p.m.?
I think churches, I think churches are under whatever guidelines they've been under. Like that hasn't changed. Whatever guidelines they've been under since November, I think they're still under.
Wow.
But the government, they're completely overhauling the level situation. So they announced sort of the like first draft of this, I think this week.
Okay.
And they're going to take a couple of weeks to try and fine tune it and get public consensus on it. But we're going to 4 levels, and thank God it's 1, 2, 3, 4.
Oh my goodness, we reduced it.
No more of this 1.5, 2.5. It's just 1, 2, 3, 4.
Oh,
and they're adjusting. They're the restrictions, business restrictions, and are going to be clarified. And stop trying to eat the strings on my hoodie. Those things, everything's just going to be hopefully a lot clearer, and I think hopefully a lot more realistic. I mean, considering what we've been going through since November, having to do like with the whole 2.53 thing.
Yeah.
They're being a little bit more realistic. And now that the vaccine program is starting out, and hopefully stop it. Hopefully everybody they're hoping for everybody to be vaccinated by, I guess, like October, early November-ish.
Yeah, I've been hearing that too. We'll see. We'll see about that.
Yeah, but this is Korea. Like, like once they jump on something,
right,
it can happen really fast.
That's true.
So
that is true.
They're on board now. I think once we get approval for all the different vaccines, like I'm of the mind that it's going to happen.
Yeah.
That's mainly the big thing that we're waiting on. Because they've only approved AstraZeneca and Pfizer at this point.
Yeah.
So they need to approve Johnson & Johnson's vaccine because they purchased from there. They also need to Novavax. They need approval. And then what was the other one?
We're getting Sputnik.
There's one more. No, not Sputnik.
You said Pfizer, Moderna.
Moderna. They haven't approved Moderna yet. So,
okay.
But those are all the companies that they've purchased for, and with the purchases that they've made so far, it's more than enough to cover the population.
Okay.
So, and foreigners, registered foreigners, especially like long-term foreigners, resident foreigners, people who have ARCs, they're going to be treated just like Koreans.
That's good to hear.
Yeah. Really so they, whenever they open up vaccines to the general public, you can go in and get your vaccine. They're actually going to do an online, I think, reservation program.
Okay.
So that you can make a reservation before like your time comes.
Oh, good. How many ActiveX controls do I need?
All of them, probably. This is Korea. But you can get online and make a reservation in advance to get your vaccines. And the interval between will depend on what type of vaccine that you get. Because right now for AstraZeneca, they just changed it from 8 to 10 weeks to 10 to 12 weeks in between.
Okay.
And that's just because they're trying to get as many people vaccinated as possible, like with that first vaccine. But yeah, so right now they're just really trying to speed up the vaccine program and get as many people vaccinated as possible. I think it was just this morning they announced that people over 65 can be vaccinated with AstraZeneca. I heard that.
I heard that from you actually.
Yeah, that we posted that this morning. So that's happening.
Okay.
Right now they're focusing on trying to get patients and workers in nursing homes and long-term care facilities vaccinated first.
Yeah.
And then frontline workers have also already received their vaccines. They got the Pfizer vaccine.
Okay, good. So you actually have real information. I'm serious. Okay, so my morning routine, I include 2 Korean news stream, two parts of my news stream is from English language Korean news sources. People can figure out which ones I'm talking about.
Mine is one.
And one of them is very propagandy, very cheery, does not say anything negative about Korea. And then the other one actually gives me news I can use.
I'm hoping that's mine.
Yeah. I mean,
Okay,
stuff
yeah.
about the LH scandal and stuff like that. They're not mentioning that on the other one.
Oh, that is just it's so much news on the LH scandal.
Oh no,
like
I'm not
today,
confused.
yesterday.
I'm loving this. I'm just love any real estate speculators to get just
Ooh.
boom busted.
Yeah, no, actually, like today, because I typically leave the office at 5, and I literally right before I started packing up my laptop, like they had like a breaking news announcement that somebody involved in the scandal had committed suicide.
Oh,
and so everybody's like, "Oh my god!" I look over and immediately I'm like, laptop shut in my bag, and I'm like, "Have a good weekend, bye guys." I'm
You're
out.
so funny. It's like
I'm out. I'm out.
suicide, I'm
It's
out.
after
I don't want to know who. I don't
This
care.
is
I don't
all
want
on
to know.
you. You guys have to see your shifts don't end until 7 or 8 p.m. Mine ended exactly 30 seconds ago. I am out. Peace. Have fun. Enjoy your weekend. I'm out.
Here we are laughing at suicide. Oh my gosh.
No, we're not laughing at suicide.
No, but I also liked I was listening to the comments from the investigators, the government officials in charge of investigating and prosecuting. They're saying they're really just like they're doing like Obama level speeches on these people. It's like, it's like we're going after these scumbags who have stolen these people's dreams, who have saved up their whole lives to have a house of their own. And we are going after these people who have stolen their dreams, things like that.
Right. Well, I mean, they're doing it because the housing market has been one of the biggest issues that people have with the Moon Jae administration.
I have that
because,
issue.
well, I mean, yeah.
I don't have the issue with the current administration. I just have that issue in general.
In general,
I'm just waiting for housing prices to cool down a bit.
Yeah, and like that's the thing. Housing prices have just been continually going up, and no matter what they do, nothing really seems to really work.
Yeah, it's just
I'm not sure if it's because we're not giving it time to settle in, or if they're just really bad ideas. When it comes to real estate, I'm not the person to.
My thinking is real estate is slow, and I mean, this is a problem that's been growing for decades. You're not going to get a quick fix for it.
No, there's not going to be a quick fix. Like, I mean, I could, I've lived here for 13 years, and I spent a vast majority of my time living over near Konkuk University. And I moved there at first because I was working in Gangnam, like near Samsung Station.
Yeah.
But Konkuk University, that Hwayeongdong, that area, it was close enough that it wasn't a huge commute, but the housing prices were so much cheaper.
Yeah.
So for the same price that I was paying for a studio apartment near Sunung Station in Gangnam, I could get like a 2-bedroom, large living room, big kitchen apartment in Kundae for the same price.
Yeah.
But then, I lived there for almost 10 years. And so I kind of saw like when I finally moved to Gyeonggi, like the reason I did was because I couldn't get the same size place for the same size price. Because like within a year, prices had within 2 years, prices had just completely shot up.
Yeah, they doubled in Anyang. That's why we moved from Anyang to Gimpo, and now Gimpo's the hot spot, and they're raising in Gimpo.
Yeah, and so that's why I ended up moving over to like the Itaewon area, because it was a place where I could find, I could find an apartment where I could have a bedroom, a living room, and a second room that I could turn into my office, and I could actually afford it. And also, I mean, my key money is really low because I lost a bunch of my key money, but we're not going to get into that story because it was a long time ago, and it's a long story and has nothing to do with housing prices and everything to do with a roommate that was like, yes, I'm going to stay here for 2 years, and then left after 6 months.
Oh boy.
Yeah. But housing prices have just not been cooling down, and like the Moon Jae-in administration is like, okay, we're going to try this, we're going to try that, and nothing was working. Again, I'm not sure if it's because like they didn't really give much time to see if it would work.
Yeah.
I think possibly. And they're just desperate to do something.
Yeah.
So a few months ago, last month, they actually announced this huge public housing redevelopment plan that spans the entire country. And so like a few 100,000, they're going to build a few 100,000 new houses that are going to be constituted as like public housing. And they're going to be priced lower so that new families or even young people can be able to afford them.
Yeah, Jukong.
And that's how this whole LH thing started.
Yeah.
Because two of the cities that are part of this program are Gwangyang and Sihung.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is where, so they announced it. And then it came out that there were these people who worked at LH, which for people who don't know, that's the kind of like the state-run housing development company. It's massive. There's so many employees there, like over 20-something thousand people work for them. But yeah, they're kind of, I guess, they're in charge of this. They're a public housing development company. And these people that worked for them, it came out that just between, I think a year or two before they announced this, or enough before that it was suspect, they had bought up like 10 billion won in land in these two cities that were part of this new development program.
Yeah.
And so red flags immediately so they announced the program and then they were like, wait a minute. I'm not even sure who broke this. I don't even know who found it out. I just know that it came out recently that, these 13 people who worked for the company.
20. I heard it was 20 now.
It is 20 now. In the beginning, and at first it was only 13, but then they launched an interagency investigation, which is, I think it was like police. It's the police, the new National Headquarters of Investigation under the police, which is like the new program that they created to give the police more investigative power. But also testing my memory. I know this. The insurance agency the service was also involved. The financial commission, the financial commission one.
Okay.
Was also involved. And there were two other government agencies that were involved that were just doing a broad looking into all of the employees that worked not only at LH, but also that worked in the land ministry as well. And then that's when they found 7 more people who they suspect of also taking part in land speculation.
Man.
So now, and that's what creates the 20. So now it's 20. They did this big, like, broad preliminary investigation and uncovered more people. So now it's at 20. And they're gonna do a deep dive,
taking all the boxes out.
Yeah. And they're gonna do a deep dive into their family as well. So like reports that we were getting today are saying like this is probably just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, because I'm sure they would have told family members. Yeah. Yep.
And that's the big deal. Like they bought up this land using insider information.
Well, it's the two things that we're really sensitive about traditionally and really recently. It's education and land and real estate, education and housing. Anyone that is getting a free ride or is cheating in any way, that is one quick way to get the public ire.
Right. And then anybody who's buying up land using insider information is also now on a blacklist.
Yeah.
I mean, and like considering just how difficult it is even for, 2-income families to buy property.
Yeah, it is.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's absolutely ridiculous.
I mean, it's tough. And I got friends who kind of were pressured into buying their places. And they're really having a rough time hitting their mortgage payments. It's really tough.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm a millennial, so if I were back in America, I can't buy a place. but definitely here in Korea, like Korea is even more expensive than that.
It's
and like
worse.
I'm from Oklahoma, so like that's going to be like a massive gap. I think like a more comparable gap is probably like buying property in New York City.
Yeah.
Maybe. So for me, it's like I can't really, because I have this massive gap, because I know property prices in Oklahoma, at least, back in like 2007.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, I mean, my parents built a brand new 24 square foot house in 1996 for $100,000.
Yeah.
And then they sold it in 2004 for $180,000. And this is set on like 2 acres of land as well.
Mm-hmm.
So like that's the prices that I know and that I'm used to. And then coming here and finding out, like, if you want to buy like just a decent size 3-bedroom apartment, it's going to be like $1 million or $2 million.
It's around $500,000. Our previous place, they were going to sell it to us for cheap. It was around $500,000 for it was a 3-bedroom.
Yeah, buying property in Korea is just not an option for me at all. I'm just like looking to find a place that I can rent that will let me stay here for longer than 2 years. And I found one, and I'm not moving.
Let's hope.
Because I hate moving.
Yeah,
I hate moving.
Sucks.
Hate moving. I can deal with all the little breakdowns. It's an older apartment, but that's what you get when you want a cheaper rent in a bigger place.
Yeah, that's true. At least you're not in a basement.
And I'm willing to deal with that, just not to have to go through the suffering of moving again.
Yeah. Well,
and it's just me, so.
Yeah. So the latest thing this week that is in the foreigner community, but not talked about much in the Korean press, especially in the Korean press, but not even much in the English language press, is that the Gyeonggi government has recently required all foreigners to get coronavirus tests. And this is, hold on, let me pull up my notes on this one. Yeah. So what happened was, I think in late February, early March, that we've had a few clusters at some factory dormitories in Gyeonggi Province.
Right.
Namyangju, I think, was one of them, which is in the far east of Gyeonggi-do. Then there's one in the north, not Uijeongbu, but somewhere around there, I think it was. And what they had in common was that they were factories that had a lot of migrant workers,
right,
where they were living together in dormitories, which is a concern. Yeah. It is a concern. We've talked a lot about the bad environments a lot of these workers are in. And so Gyeonggi government says, we got to do something about these outbreaks. So let's just test all foreigners in our province.
Yeah. Like, I remember when the story first broke out, they were doing an overall inspection on factories, especially factories that had dormitories. Which most factories that have dormitories, they have them for migrant workers. Yeah. And so all these outbreaks were happening, not really because of the fault of these workers. It was because the companies themselves were not following COVID guidelines within their dormitories. And, when you pack 20 people in a room that usually is probably only supposed to have like 15 or 10 to 15. Yeah. And then considering in COVID time, it's supposed to be even less. Yeah. It's no surprise that clusters are going to happen. And so like one of the main clusters that launched into this, most of the people who had tested positive were these foreign workers, but also there were Korean workers who were also living in the dormitories who also tested positive. And so it started out that they were we're going to test all these foreign workers that work at these factories who are living in dormitories.
Yeah.
And then that somehow morphed into we're going to test all foreign workers in Gyeonggi Province. And I'm not quite sure how they made that leap, but
Yeah, how'd that logic
this is Korea.
go? And this is what I wanted to know. I couldn't find any information. Are they testing all the Korean workers in these factories?
In the beginning, I was under the impression from what I read that they were testing. Nope.
They should.
That they were.
They've been doing that for the other places.
Right. Like they were testing everybody at the factories, specifically focusing on people who lived in the dormitories, whether they were foreign or Korean.
Mm-hmm.
But now somehow it's kind of morphed into we're going to test all foreign workers.
Yeah.
Which I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out.
They're still also doing an inspection of all these factories that hire foreign workers as well.
Well, that's good.
So, yeah, I mean, because they should, because I'm pretty sure these companies are cutting corners and not following COVID guidelines when it comes to their dormitories, which we know. Okay, stop it.
Yeah,
I'm gonna put you outside of the office if you keep doing that, dude.
But that's the tough part has been all this bad communication.
Mm-hmm.
We're all getting it from hearsay.
Right.
They're supposed to be informing the employers that they're supposed to inform their employees about this.
Right. The news articles that I read have said that they were informing employers, and employers were supposed to inform their employees if they need to get tested.
Right.
Which under that sort of, if that's coming from the government. So in that case, if you're a foreign worker and you don't get informed that you need to be tested, A, if it's incorrect, it's not on you.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be, at least. And B, I mean, maybe there are some sort of guidelines for which foreign workers are getting tested. I don't know.
Yeah.
We
haven't heard any. Now, I live in Gyeonggi Province, but I don't work in Gyeonggi Province. And so we called this morning the Gyeonggi Province call center, which is at 031120. There's also a Ministry of Justice Immigration Contact Center at 1345. Called it and asked if I needed to go, and they said no.
Even though you lived in Gyeonggi.
I live in Gyeonggi, but I don't work. I work in Seoul.
Okay, so it could just be foreigners who work in Gyeonggi.
Yeah, but you have people all the way around. People who live in Seoul but work in Gyeonggi. Also, but first we called our local offices, our Donggu office, and they never even heard about this.
They had no idea.
No, because communication, not the forte. Clear lines of communication, not big. Not usually. Yeah. So we didn't know. I have a big problem that the employers, it's the employer's responsibility to inform their employees, but the employees get fined if they don't get their tests.
Right. That's what I heard.
There are some levels of abuse right here. Because, you know, when you get your COVID test, you're supposed to quarantine yourself for an amount of time.
Right. Until you get a negative response.
Right. I'm pretty sure these factories, they don't want their workers to take time off to go into quarantine.
Probably not.
So one way around it would be, well, I won't inform them of this. They'll just keep working. And if they get in trouble, well, I don't get fined. That's their fault.
Yeah. So, but I mean, the government they've said, I mean, whether or not they're actually doing it is one thing.
Yeah. There are a few things on that one, but yeah. I mean, they have
said that they are doing an inspection, on-site inspections of these factories, specifically factories that hire foreign workers.
Well, that's good. With
dormitories. So hopefully a good thing that will come out of that is that they will see, the companies are not following COVID guidelines, or the companies will be like, oh crap, they're going to come look for us. They're going to come here and inspect us, and they'll start following COVID guidelines.
But do we have anything in place to punish them if they're not following guidelines? I'm wondering that.
There should be. I mean, if they're finding people for not getting tested, one would assume that they are also finding companies for not informing
You'd assume,
people.
but you always find that they're always putting the brunt of the fines on the most vulnerable population.
On the individual. Yeah, this is true.
Yeah.
One would hope. I mean, if I were a politician, I would not go for the individuals. I would go for the companies.
Yeah.
Because we all know that's where the money is.
No, my questions were like,
you would think, yeah.
If they're testing the foreign workers, are they also testing their families? If they're Korean family members? I mean, some people will say that this is for the public health. This is for the public good. And I would say yes. But this sounds more like theater, public health theater than public health fact.
Right. You know, but putting on a show for the public saying, hey, look, there was this thing and we're taking care of it. But you would think by now that Korea would learn to do more pointed testing. You know, if this cluster started in dormitories at several, not just one, I think it was like 2 or 3 maybe factories. Then you shouldn't do just like a blanket, let's test all foreigners. You should do, let's test everybody, foreign or Korean, that works at these factories, specifically people who are living in these dormitories. And then we should also go a step further and take a look at these dormitories. And it's not even just factories that have dormitories. It's big companies like Samsung and LG. They have massive dormitories outside of Seoul where, I mean, people live when they're doing training, like before they're starting like entry-level positions. You know, we need to be looking at this. This is what we need to be looking at. Are they following whatever the COVID guidelines are? If we haven't set guidelines, which, oh my dear God, let's hope they've set something. I would assume that they have at this point. We're a year in. They obviously have to have some sort of guideline set for any sort of dormitory situation, whether it's a university. Yes, I know you're making that face. That's why I said one would hope. But I mean, you know, like this is a chance where they need to like go into that and be like, okay, have we set guidelines? Are these guidelines working? If they're not, let's come up with new guidelines. Let's like be very specific and pointed, because we're at that point. Like we've been in this for a year. You can't just do blanket what have you.
We do have this history of making everything just for show. This goes back a long ways. In fact, I've been reading up. I've been getting a lot more Joseon Dynasty history books and stuff. And Joseon Dynasty, this is one reason why, I want to say this on the Dark Side of Soul podcast. This is one reason why the international community gave up on Korea when Japan was being too aggressively taking over. It's like, we were so tired of you doing everything just for show. We gave up on you. Have fun with Japan.
Whatever.
Yeah, it's the history of doing this.
And I mean, like even like if you look right, and well, like even if you just look at like the past year and like the COVID history, you know, I mean, I know a lot of foreigners feel like they're being, you know, pointed out right now, but and yes, and again, you know, and we also have like the Itaewon Cluster, which was dealt with horribly.
Yes.
But also like, I mean, when we were having the call center clusters, anybody, and this was pretty much all Koreans, mostly Korean workers, you know, they had a cluster that a few call centers had clusters, and then suddenly every call center in the nation is having to go in and get COVID tested. You know, nursing home, clusters started happening at nursing homes. Everybody who worked at, lived in, visited a nursing home has to get tested.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not trying to like say
no
that this is
that's
right.
more balanced. That's more nuanced. But when young people were going up to the Gyeonggi Facebook page and asking them, getting on to them about this, in their defense, they're saying, well, we have tested when there's an outbreak at a Kupang center, we tested everyone at Kupang. When there's an outbreak at a church, we tested everyone at the church. But I kind of want to say, but did you test everyone at every church? If you have an outbreak at a sauna, are you testing everyone who ever went to any sauna?
That's the difference.
I mean, that's kind of what
like
it is.
The only comparison to make is like the call centers.
Yeah, the call centers.
Because that is one thing that. Yeah. 2 call centers had clusters. Every call center in the nation was being tested.
But you could also divide this by visa type as well, because there are people who are on E7 visas, people who are university professors and such that because of restrictions have not even left their apartment. They're doing all their work, all their classes remotely. They've barely left their apartments. Right. And they're being lumped in the same category as people crowded together in dorms.
Right, which is not to say anything bad about people crowded into dorms.
No. But it's this blanket of lumping everyone together or painting everyone with the same brush, painting every situation.
Yeah, no, and I agree, and that's why what I was talking about earlier is like it needs to be more targeted. Yeah. And this just to me reeks of like just laziness. It's like
smart bomb, not a carpet bomb, and it's ironic that whenever we bring this up, they keep saying, well, you should understand our unique situation, but they're not even considering others' unique situations.
Exactly. No, I agree. I'm just like, and it's, because foreigners and migrant workers, when it comes to, clusters involving Koreans, they're like, okay, only people at call centers. Okay. Only people at this church. But if there's a cluster it seems like if there's a cluster that involves foreigners, they're just like, well, this is too much for us to think about letting all foreigners.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. It just sounds like they didn't want to do the work. So it's like, okay, they're not voting anyway. They didn't want to take the
time to be like, okay, maybe we should actually like look into how these factories are handling COVID, because they're obviously not following guidelines in some way.
Yeah, they obviously aren't. This reminds me a lot, and it sounds like they're just doing this for show still a bit. I mean, this reminds me a lot of, I think it was 2007. I want to say 2006, 2007. We had some fake degree scandals in the ESL community. I think a couple of teachers were caught faking their diplomas.
I think that was because I was here, so I want to say that was probably 2008. It was either late 2007 or definitely 2008.
Yeah, and the first quick fix they had was for every single teacher. Every single foreign teacher in Korea to go to their local immigration, to take a day off of work, go all the way down to their local immigration office. And I say local facetiously. Most people go into their immigration office. It's a long, long ride to get there. And they get there, and what do? They have to give the immigration office the phone number for the university they graduated from. Nothing else. The phone number. I'm like, why?
Don't they already have that on file?
A, don't they already have that? B, are they seriously going to call each university and check up on that? That they never did anything. This was just for theater. They just inconvenienced all the foreigners to make it sound like that they were doing something.
And it would make more sense, like if this was actually, like if that was actually an issue, it would make more sense for them to adopt that into the visa approval process.
Well, but it's now part of the visa approval process. We now have to get the apostilled transcripts and diplomas and everything.
Right.
It came from that.
Like, okay, when I'm just like, how I'm like, damn, like how could people fake that? Because even I got my E2 in 2007 and I had to submit, I would submit a photocopy of my my degree, which, okay, I admit, yeah. But I also had to send them two sealed college transcripts.
Okay. So that rule was after the phone number rule. Because the phone number rule was the first band-aid to the solution to this problem.
Yeah. So when I applied for my first E2, I had to submit sealed college transcripts, which those were fun to get.
Yeah. Not the easiest thing to get.
It took 4 months in between getting hired for the job until I could actually come to Korea, because, that's just how long it took to get all the documentation.
Yeah.
And this is when getting an E2 was easy.
Yeah.
This was before you had to go in and do an interview, before you had to get apostils, before you had to have an FBI background check.
Yeah.
I just had to have these transcripts, which, because I had just graduated from university, I had to wait on my diploma, because they don't give you when you walk the stage, they don't give you your diploma when you walk the stage. They send it to you weeks later.
Yeah.
And transcripts also had to wait.
Yeah.
So, and I had applied and gotten the job a month after I had graduated. So it took 4 months, and then the whole processing and making sure I was who I was and that I graduated and this and that. And then I had to FedEx actually, I will say this. This is back in a time where I didn't actually have to go physically to a Korean consulate to get a visa. I could FedEx everything, including my passport, which was a little, not gonna lie, scared the shit out of me.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But I could FedEx everything to the closest consulate, which was a 4-hour drive. I was in Florida at the time. So I had to FedEx it to a completely different city. And I can't even imagine everybody, and after I got here and after everything got harder, where you had to actually go in for an actual interview.
Yeah.
I'm what? Because I had friends in Texas who came here to teach English afterwards, and Texas has 1 or 2 consulates, and Texas is a massive, massive, massive state. So they would have to drive 4 or 5 hours to get to the closest Korean consulate to do an interview.
Yeah.
Just to teach English in Korea.
Yeah.
And this was during the flood of English teachers.
Yeah. Which we're not getting a trickle now. Yeah, but this is, I think, out of all...
Well, no, Korea is pretty much just trying to kick out all the foreigners they currently have, apparently.
Yeah, well, this is what it feels like, is out of all weird policies towards foreigners, this is an area where we've gotten a little sensitive about lately. Things involving disease. Well, one thing, this has also been a series of oopsies. This has all been Gyeonggi government, because actually the federal government and the Seoul Tukbyoshi, the Seoul city, has been pretty good about keeping everything, but it's the Gyeonggi government that has been hamming it up the whole time. Starting with a year ago, they were doing a free mask campaign, but except for foreigners, which they fixed after people protested, and they said, "Oops, we didn't know."
But wasn't Gyeonggi one of the first provinces to actually offer COVID relief to foreigners before even Seoul did?
Well, now let me bring that one up. They were offering COVID relief, but they were leaving out foreigners until the people protested, and they said again, "Oops, we didn't know."
Right. And then the Seoul government was like, right. So,
yeah.
Or not.
Yeah.
Seoul,
well, the Seoul government. Seoul gave relief payments much after Gyeonggi. Gyeonggi was trying to be progressive because the governor plans to run for president. But each time they were doing all these great programs, they kept forgetting to include the foreigners. They forgot again.
Right. Sorry.
Yeah,
totally forgot.
And now they're doing it again.
Again,
they're just now they're still saying, "Oops, we weren't aware. Oops, we weren't aware."
Sorry, we totally forgot you guys lived here.
Yeah. Or
Again,
we just forget that you're not a monolith.
For the 6th time in a year, we totally forgot you guys were here. Sorry.
You're all different shapes
I mean,
and
I'm not
sizes, have all different
complaining,
situations. Oh.
Personally for me, when it came to the Seoul Metropolitan, what they offered for foreigners for COVID relief,
Yeah.
I thought their guidelines were a little too stringent.
Oh, they were?
I mean, they were, as a foreigner, as a single foreigner, you had to have made no more than 1.7 million won a month to receive any sort of COVID help.
So you can get shipment one, so you can get 100,000.
I think it was 400,000.
Okay, that's decent. Did you get it in cash or did you get it in special cards?
It would be a cash payment because Seoul doesn't have the special cards that Gyeonggi has.
This is where Gyeonggi is progressive. Gyeonggi is very forward-looking in so many ways, and again confused because we get our payments in these special cards that can be used to stimulate the local economy. Gyeonggi cash, but they can only be used. They can only be used in mom and pops that aren't corporate grocery stores. The thing is, it's hard to tell which one's corporates and which ones aren't. You can't tell.
Oh, true.
Because we also have this weird rule that we've had that, again, it's all for show. It's not to actually do anything. Is we're supposed to close down giant supermarkets once a week, Sundays or once every other week.
Right, I forgot it.
On every other Sunday or in Gyeonggi Province, it's every other Wednesday. And
I can't remember what it is in Seoul, but we have the same
Sundays.
thing. I'm not sure.
I think it's Sundays. Every other Sunday.
Yeah,
in Seoul.
it's every other Sunday or one Sunday a month or something like that.
So
which I haven't been to an actual grocery store in about a year, so I don't know.
Well, this is what's so confusing about it. So they closed down those stores, which is obvious. Okay, so those are the big supermarkets. But then you go to one of the other supermarkets that don't close every other week, and they're considered too corporate too. So you can't use your cash there. What? Yeah. And then they gave us through to the school system, we got another 40,000 won 40,000 won certificate for local food, which is a string of farmers co-op grocery stores that are mostly in Gyeonggi Province. We go down to local food.
Ooh, I like that idea.
I love local food. But the thing, it can be very cheap
all
there.
about that.
The trouble is, it's impossible to spend 40,000 won in one go at local food. There's only so much buchu you can buy, you know?
Yeah. Oh, right. And because they have there's a time limit on it, right? That you have a certain amount of time that you have to spend.
You have to use the entire 40,000 in one go. So you have to fill up our cart. You're forced to buy perishable items because it's all perishable items. It's stuff that's going to be bad within 2 weeks. That are not going to make it.
That you're not going to eat.
Yeah.
Which it helps no one because that just increases food waste and yeah.
So we couldn't get it over a space of time. We couldn't. It's a card. You couldn't debit it. No, you couldn't do it. No.
And it doesn't roll over.
It doesn't roll over. We had to spin it all or just give it up. And like, okay, well, here you go. When we tried to pump it up. We really were filling up our cart. It was like 28,000 in our cart. And I love local food. It gets me.
I mean, I'm a huge fan of supporting local markets. Like when I lived in Hyundai, and then I think for a few years I was still living in Gwanjin-gu, but I moved closer to like Gunja Station.
Yeah.
But either way, I lived right by a local kind of street market where I could go through and like, but I had to have, it was cash. You always had to have cash.
Yeah.
But it was just like, but it was great, and I loved it because it was cheaper
this is
than going to the
Gyeonggi's
grocery
solution.
store.
This is from Nonghyup, and they just get local farmers and they put them in a proper grocery store and they put their pictures next to the produce. I love that place.
Oh, yeah, it was just like literally like a street, and like people had rented out little spaces, and they would just like put out
have stalls, and this
produce.
This took care of it.
They
all.
had like produce or meat, and it was cheaper than going to a grocery store. And I actually preferred it over going to a grocery store because A, it was cheaper. B, I was helping the local traditional market economy.
Right. And the produce, in many ways, the produce is better, depending.
And the produce is better.
Yeah.
I would try and use it as much as I possibly could because, like, when I was living there, there were times when I was not making a huge ton of money. So when it came to buying groceries, I would have to use my American credit card, which I could not use at these stalls because they were cash only.
Yeah.
This was back in the day when cash only was a thing.
Yeah.
So I would have to go to the closest supermarket, which was like the GS supermarket, or I think there was like a Home Plus supermarket when I lived near Gunja.
Yeah.
But every chance I got, I was always just like, yep, right there in the traditional market. But now living in Gyeonggi-don, I don't know if there is like a traditional.
There is.
We do have.
There is one in Gyeonggi-don. I've seen it. I've walked through it a few times. Yes.
Like we have like small mom and pop supermarkets. Like there's one near my house called Wellbeing Mart.
Yeah, but that's not it.
Which when I do go
open air market, it's just very small.
Like Wellbeing Mart is like near my house. That's the one that I go to. It's not a corporate. I don't think.
You never know.
No, it's a small grocery store, and I feel like it's a mom and pop grocery store. So when I absolutely, like, if I need something right now, I go there. Nowadays, I mostly order online because COVID.
Yeah.
Which COVID has really been great for helping me with my anxiety with crowds, because every time I go to large markets, I have super high anxiety when it comes to being in large crowds.
I get that too. We picked the wrong cities for this. Well, other things.
Well,
this is why
I was not always like that. That's my excuse. I wasn't always like this. This was a thing that developed after 2013 for reasons I'm not going to get into. But yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, this is going back to our original topic about why this is an issue with the foreign community. Is anything disease related? They need to realize we've become really sensitive to anything that implies foreigners have disease, foreigners are dirty, because there's been a pattern of Korea doing this. For one thing, you brought up the Itaewon thing last May, around Children's Day. There was an outbreak in Itaewon at clubs
holiday weekend.
They were frequented. These are clubs that are known to be frequented mostly by Korean nationals, but since it was in Itaewon, it was blamed on. People were blaming foreigners for it. As far away as Busan, people were
specifically
going after foreigners.
They were right, and specifically, especially in the Korean press, it was pushed that these were gay clubs.
Oh yeah, and that
which is another big. Yeah, that was a
stigma on top of stigma on top of stigma, and this is like where I think it's
part of it. It was like gay and foreigner.
Yeah, and this is why I really think it's dangerous.
Were less likely to go forward.
It's really dangerous by making the disease associated with the other. This is very irresponsible, and it's a habit Korea has done throughout history, is to always blame the other for problems. People are always going to go, well, America does it too. Well, and like, yeah, whatever. That does not excuse Korea. Just because America does it a little bit does not excuse Korea from doing it a lot. Korea is not America's little brother that can do whatever Big Brother does. It's its own entity, and
America America shouldn't be doing it either. And
But America shouldn't be doing it either.
that
But
as
I don't
well.
think that I love this this weakness, this weak excuse of giving Korea an excuse because another country does it. It's what Korea is just a
doesn't matter.
follower. Yeah, it's
No
so
country
weak.
should be doing it.
Yeah, it's so weak. So, but we're
Trump
not
should
allowed.
not have gone
No
up
one's
and been
allowed to
like,
complain.
"Oh, all the rapists come."
No one's allowed to make the situation better because
Mhm.
other countries do it. It's just people just not
Yeah.
wanting to face the mirror. But we've had this long
And-
thing. I mean, we had 2009. This is what this reminds me of. Is 2009 the H1N1 swine flu
Right.
pandemic that went around, and the government did quarantine
Which
people
never
coming
actually
in.
really hit. Yeah, but it didn't actually really hit Korea big.
It hit. We had around 100,000 total were infected. I think 3 people died.
But it wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it wasn't a massive thing in Korea from what I remember. I was working in media back then, but we weren't.
Well, no, we started this
we
whole podcast
weren't-
back then, and we talked to people that were in
Yeah.
quarantine. We actually did an episode with people that were currently in quarantine, and this is what got me, because this was
Oh.
hardly in the news. Hardly in the news was
Yeah,
that.
I know why. Because I was working at Arirang TV. That's why I was not.
Yeah.
Okay, go.
Yeah. So
Turn for propaganda
they were
TV.
just quarantining foreigners coming in from overseas, not Koreans. And the people I were talking to, they were coming in on a school trip, and the Koreans got to go home to their families. Now they did have to quarantine. The families did have the people that the Koreans did have to quarantine, but they were allowed to quarantine in their apartments. The foreigners had to be in a special dormitory facility. And they were separated, and so there were some people there that were married with children, and they were separated from their spouses and children in this dormitory. They weren't allowed to go home to their to quarantine.
Wait, but did they have to pay for it as well?
I do not know. I don't think they did. But
Okay, well, that's a difference. That is one difference from now.
Yeah, there's one difference from now, but the fact that they were separating, only foreigners could quarantine in the dorms, Koreans could quarantine at home. And this was starting this more of foreigners dirty, Koreans not as much. And then going back to the AIDS thing, the AIDS scapegoating.
Yeah,
the foreign
HIV was
community.
brought in by foreigners.
Yeah, and there were articles during the '88 Olympics about how to prevent yourself from getting AIDS from foreigners, and then there was the HIV requirements for E2 visas, or actually for English teachers in general, wasn't it? That was
yeah, it was E2, E1, which is English professors, I believe. Yeah,
right, where Angela Vandam made a complaint with the UN Human Rights Council and won,
and that got that.
Yeah.
Yeah. After years,
and she had already left Korea.
Or a year.
Andrea Vandam. Yes,
Yeah,
Andrea Vandam. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't actually know the name. I was just going with you on that. But yeah, I know who you're talking about. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then just scores and scores of news programs about diseased foreigners, and we just forgive us if we're a little sensitive.
And yeah,
about
and that's like not
anything
even,
related to
and it's
disease.
not even just like an old thing. Like, those Korean in-depth news programs were doing things about diseased foreigners just a couple years ago.
Yeah. And yes, I know people are going to say, because they've had said it to me, well, it's not as bad as, but in America, Asians are getting assaulted, which is awful. That is
Horrible.
awful.
Should not be happening.
Yeah.
Should not be happening.
And over here, you have a government systematically discriminating against their foreign community. That's also not good. It's also not good.
Not good.
You can't just say,
well, I mean,
foreigners in Korea can't complain.
You can also make the argument that America has like systematic against. Well, it's not just foreigners.
We do have
just, like,
systematic problems in Korea, in America, and just today I just heard Republicans in the House talking about the Chinese flu again, and it's like, oh God, I mean, that's awful. But a lot of the incidents in America is scumbag individuals doing this. In Korea, it is the government, the system itself doing this.
Yeah. Which, and I mean, honestly, like it's not just even foreign others, it's just others. You know, the government here, they refuse to pass a discrimination law. They refuse to pass it because they want to include, I mean, race is not the problem. It's sexual,
it's the religious right. The religious right is preventing that because it includes protections for LGBTQ.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, we're talking specifically about foreigners, but the government systemic stuff in Korea is not just limited to foreigners. It's limited to others in general, whether it's your sexual orientation, transgender, women. Ooh, don't get me started on that. Yeah. So like we're talking specifically about things that are specifically foreigner because we are foreigners who have lived here for a long time and been dealing with it for a long time.
And we don't we don't get a voice here. So
because
the only
can't
voice
vote.
we can get is doing stuff on YouTube and podcasts and stuff.
And I mean, like, it's not for a lack of trying to get, I mean, you know, I think you have to have a F5 visa to vote, right?
I have an F5 and I do vote. I have voted before and it's cool.
For me to get an F5, like honestly, the easiest way for me, and by easy, it's still not incredibly easy. I have to marry a Korean guy. Yeah. Yep. I mean, I've just been like trying all these years to get it on my own. I'm just like, they keep making
moving the
harder
goalposts on that one. Yeah.
Moving the goalposts. I was just like, I get there and I'm like, I'm almost there. And then they move it like 10 yards farther. And I'm like, God damn it.
Yeah, they don't.
No, they don't. What do I have to do?
Like we want to be a global hub, but we don't want the global part of it.
And I am a foreigner who lives here, who works in the media industry, who makes like, okay, not like, I'm not rich, but I make okay money.
Yeah.
And I pay my taxes and all of my money is spent in Korea. I don't really travel that much. And I'm invested in Korea. I fucking lived here. Oh, okay, whatever, said that. I've lived here for 13 years, 14 years. I don't want to leave Korea.
But I'm looking because my visa expires.
Card.
You can't even get a credit card.
I still don't have a credit card.
Yeah.
But that's beside the point. Anyway, the point is like I have this, 3-year visa. And after I renewed it, they completely changed all the rules. And so now I have a little over a year left on this visa. And my options are like, at this point, I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to go through jump through like 12 million more hurdles just to keep a visa that I jumped through 12 million hurdles to get to in the first place. Or do I just leave? I mean, I want to stay.
Korea just wants the prestige.
I want to stay.
It's all they want it for the image, not for the reality. They want to be an international hub like Singapore, but without the cultural diversity of Singapore. That's what it wants. And we're just dealing with this today in my company is right now we have funding in our American side and we're trying to send it over to the Korean side so we can pay our employees. Every time we send a huge chunk of money over, the bank puts a big stop on it saying, "What are you trying to do?" And it's like, you're trying to be
we're trying to bring money into your country.
You're trying to be a freaking financial hub, international financial hub, and you block anytime we bring in $15,000 into the country to pay our workers. It's so annoyingly, it's just crazy. It's not ready in that sense. It just doesn't want to be international. It doesn't want to be a hub. It's not ready to be that way because it's got to give way.
Well, and the fact that Yeah, like the last time I checked on, because like I've been thinking, okay, maybe I can try and get the F5 because I've been on my F2 visa long enough that I could try and go for the F5.
It's hard enough to get the F2.
But they still have like this whole, you have to make 65 million won a year to get the F5. At least that's like last time I checked. I don't know. Maybe it's different, but
oh man.
I mean, I was just like, what foreigner makes what? Not even foreigners. What person makes 60? Okay, shut up. But what normal person makes 65 million won a year, which like in USD is probably
50,
like 53.
Yeah,
50 between 50 and 53,000 a year.
Yeah, it's hard to do that in Korea as a foreigner.
Like not Koreans don't even like normal Koreans don't even usually make that much.
It's getting there. It's getting there, but it's really difficult to do that as a foreigner because it's difficult to get a job.
Yeah, and like
that's not English teacher.
Yeah. To keep my visa, I have to every time I renew, I have to show them that I make at least 31 million won a year, which for me is not a huge thing because I'm not an English teacher, but it's very dependent on if I have a full-time job.
Yeah.
Which I work in a very niche market, which is how I can get paid more than that.
And from experience, I know it's also unstable.
But yeah, it also means that there are not always full-time jobs open.
Yeah.
If there's a job open, I can get it like that. If there's not a job open, and there's not always jobs open.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like I have a year and a half and I have some big decisions that I've kind of stressing out about, even though I have a year and a half to make them.
Yeah.
I'm stressing out about it because I know like it's either decision that I make, I have to make it now because I have to prepare.
Yeah.
Whether it's like, okay, you know what? I'm just going to do what I have to do to keep this visa. I have to start right now. If it's okay, I'm going to move to another country.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of have to start now. Everything it's.
You know what this is reminding?
This weekend and
you know what this is reminding me of? Minari.
What?
This reminds me of the movie.
I still haven't watched it. I still haven't watched it. Wait, is that?
I watched it twice.
No, I've heard really, really, really amazing things about it, and I want to. The reason why I haven't watched it is just because. Wait, where is it available?
You can rent it on many streaming services and Google Play and such. Yeah, and it is in Korean.
Okay,
theaters.
yeah, well, because like True, but I would also like the English subtitles.
Yeah, you would need the English subtitles. Even though the Korean they speak is not that difficult, in my opinion.
Well, True, there's only like two actors that are actually Korean actors, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like South Korean actors. Sorry,
right.
Let me rephrase that.
That whose first language is Korean. Yeah.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. Well done.
Very specific.
The movie. Oh, there's so much. I'm gonna do one of my giant posts on Zen Kimchi about it whenever I can. But it's you would appreciate that it was filmed in Oklahoma. That's why I brought it up.
Arkansas.
No, it takes place
in Oklahoma.
It's Arkansas, but it was filmed in Oklahoma.
They filmed it in Oklahoma. Oh my god, no!
In the Tulsa
I'm from both
area.
States.
In the Tulsa area.
No, I mean, like, I consider both homes. So I already felt a connection to it because it was set in Arkansas.
Yeah.
But now that I know it was actually filmed in Oklahoma, I'm just like double connection.
And it really, to me, it felt like the most
very nostalgic.
Yeah. It felt like the most rural parts of Alabama to me. I mean, that was, I grew up in Alabama, but that's not the Alabama I grew up. I was a suburbanite kid. I didn't get to know that part of Alabama until I was married into some farmers. Yeah, it's well done. I would say pay attention to a lot. There's a lot of symbolism in this movie.
Yeah, I really, really, really want to watch it. I'm assuming Apple's got it. Maybe does Amazon Prime have it?
Yeah, I think they all do. Yeah, I think they do.
Okay, yeah, because I have an account with Amazon Prime too, so
check it out.
I'll check all of that. Because I mean, if I'm gonna watch it, I would rather, honestly, I want to pay to watch it. I want to support this movie because I've heard so many good things about it.
What I find now, when you watch it, think of it this way. Think about it as also a parable of your time in Korea, because I did empathize a lot with the father, Steven Yeun's character.
Steven Yeun, yeah.
Yeah. I really empathized with him. Not sympathize, but empathize, because I felt the same pressures he's felt. It's the family being dragged around for him chasing his Pyrrhic dream of starting a farm.
Right.
And that sounds like me and my family having to deal with me chasing my dreams, doing podcasting and all this. And yeah. And me and my restaurant.
Honestly, I mean,
my problems. Yeah. Trying to do something other than teach English. Which is the
status quo.
Which is the status quo, and it's the one you can it's the job you can always fall back on. And for them, it's chicken sexing, which is not a red tube category. It is it is where you take baby chicks, and you have, it's really hard to tell what sex they are. So there's a profession, there's actually a job where you separate the males,
as I have learned.
And the males
were given 5 baby chicks.
Males go into the furnace, and that's another big symbol of the whole movie. Yeah. And but that's the backup that the wife keeps saying, like, we can always go back to doing this.
Well, no, chicken farms are a big thing in Arkansas.
Yeah.
Tyson is like one of the main. I mean, I was born there and I lived there until I was 7. Northwest Arkansas. I'm originally from Northwest Arkansas. I was born there. But my mother's family had lived there for about 30 years before I was born.
Yeah.
And that area of Arkansas where we're from, that's the southern part of the Ozark Mountains.
Yeah.
So it's considered Ozark region.
But it's a good movie.
My mom's family was actually.
Also, what I liked about the movie, even though it took place in the South, you expect this, racial tension is going to be a central thing. No, the worst was there were some microaggressions, and I caught them because I'm very aware of microaggressions. I think the average audience member would not catch it. But
and it's a mostly autobiographical film.
It's loosely, it's a tribute. He says
based on
the director said it was a tribute to his friends in Arkansas. That's a good.
But wait, wasn't it? So it wasn't his story specifically, but
it sort of was like the outline is his story, like the setting, the situation.
Like he grew up in rural Arkansas.
Not the plot itself.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But the situation. Being a first generation Korean family
the premise,
in rural Arkansas in the 1980s.
He's basically the little boy in the movie. Yeah. And it's so well done. That's
why I really want to watch it because I've heard really great things about the movie, the writing, the acting, and then also because, I'm from Arkansas.
And it's a connection. It's a real big connection between Korea and the South, and I liked seeing the immigrant story at a section of the country that is not the usual one. I like the
where
way
you would expect to see it.
Well, but it really does make the Americans look foreign because it is Arkansas. It is rural Arkansas. It does,
right?
But it is in a loving way. It does. They're just weird.
Yeah,
makes them look weird.
Well, and
it just shows how, from a Korean's point of view, how how it is being in America as a foreign country.
How strange it can be.
Yeah, not the Eddie Murphy coming to America, I love America thing. It's them more of like, we're just trying to get by because the country we came from was a little hard. We're trying to do something different and give our children something a little better. And it's practical. They're just trying to be practical. The father's chasing his dream because he always wanted to own something, not being under anyone's foot, and to succeed at something. And that's his whole dream is that. And if it's farming, that's it. And he's smart too. I mean, he's in Korea, and this is the 1980s when there's a big blast of Koreans immigrating to America. And I think he noticed that the Korean produce there's not as much Korean produce in the market. So he's making a farm to grow Korean vegetables for Korean markets. And that's genius. Of course, do that. So his idea was not that crazy.
Burgeoning.
Yeah.
No.
It was not that crazy. But the movie the movie doesn't follow a traditional plot structure. So some people are going to be like kind of lost. If you've watched, it reminds me of movies like Lost in Translation. You would not be able to tell me what is the climax of Lost in Translation. What is the denouement? What is the rising action of Lost in Translation? It's not really there. It's more of a slice of life. It's an abstract, ethereal. You feel it. You're being immersed in this world and in this story at this time, and that's kind of what this movie is.
And it's not necessarily told in a chronological. Well, yeah, it's told in a chronological order, but
but it's there are character arcs, very subtle. But it's not. There's not a point where you're like, "Oh my god, okay, this is this is where we resolve everything." No, well, things do get resolved, but
nothing
then you figure
is resolved.
You figure out that the movie wasn't about what you thought it was about. That's what it is.
This is why I need to watch it. That's what I want to watch it. No, just like hearing you talk about like, this father who upplants his family and is like taking them on along with him to follow his dream. I mean, it actually really makes me think of my own father in our own small town in Oklahoma. He had a very, very successful job working for, coincidentally, a Korean company.
Yeah, there you go.
He was a district sales manager for Kia Motors of America, which worked out really well for all of us for years. But his dream, I think maybe this is just like a universal man dream, or I don't know, a universal dream in general.
Yeah, it is.
He wanted to own his.
You see little things about the characters. You see how the children speak English mostly, while the parents mostly speak Korean. You see the shoes are different.
I'm all about the grandmother.
The grandmother wears Korean slippers, while the little boy wears cowboy boots. Things like little subtle things like that you catch. The mother is extremely religious, and so she's all about faith, and that comes into play as well in many ways. You find the little thing that is big about each one, and the grandmother is atheist, very strongly atheist, and trying to clash with her daughter.
I mean, I didn't know that, but like the few clips that I've seen, I was just like, I latched onto the grandmother character.
She steals it.
That's my
steals it. People are going to be pissed if she's not nominated.
I love her.
Yeah.
And like the interactions with her and the little boy, and he's like, "You're not like other grandmothers.
Yeah,
you don't make cookies." And she's just like, "What?"
It's great. It's great.
I love that. I love that because I connect with her, because I'm pretty sure, should I ever be a grandmother, that's probably the type of grandmother that I'm going to be someday. Yeah. We're just like, what? You want me to make cookies? I don't even make cookies.
Yeah. She doesn't cook. She watches wrestling all day and plays cards. That's great. Yeah.
Life
so
goal,
anyway,
grandmother goals right there.
Watch
also
watch
Minari. Loves her.
Watch Minari. It's especially if you have any interest in, I don't know. I mean, I would say interest in Korea, interest in the immigrant experience. There's a lot. I love it how universal this film is. It is.
Yeah, because like I hear you talk about it, and like some of the things you talk about, I'm like, immediately kind of relating to, even whether it's, my experience here in Korea, but actually most of it is my experience back home with my family back home. So yes, I know it's supposed to be a movie about the immigrant experience in Arkansas in the South, but I'm just like, that's actually what, I mean, yes, there are definitely I'm sure there are things that they went through because I haven't seen the movie yet, but I'm sure there's a lot of that is definitely immigrant experience that they only had.
Yeah.
But a lot of the themes and stuff that you're talking about, I'm like, that's actually a lot of stuff that my family went through, being a lower class family in Arkansas. Being in Arkansas, specifically Arkansas, when Oklahoma was a little bit different.
And I would say
that was after mom married dad.
Another parallel between the father and a lot of people's experience in Korea is the father's very resistant to local customs. He really tries to hold on to his Koreanness, and he thinks all the locals are crazy wackos, the religious crazy wackos. For one thing, the one thing is the divining, using a divining rod, using a divining rod to find water, and he's like, Americans are crazy. They don't know anything. And
wait, what, dude? I would think that was crazy.
Yeah, I know, but it's used to illustrate, because I want to play this. Is the divining rod in this movie kind of represents like customs that Koreans have that make no sense to me at first, but I've later adopted, like opening the house. Even in the dead of winter, there are times I will open all the windows and doors to clean out the air in the house. I thought this was so illogical when I first came here, and now I do it. One reason is our heating system is different here than it is different in Korea.
Right, back in the States.
In the States, it is you heat a house by blowing hot air in. In Korea, it is by heating.
And it comes from the ceilings. It comes from the floors.
Yeah. So opening up in America, opening up a house in the winter is wasting money. You're all that wonderful.
You're letting your heat go out the door.
You're letting your money go out the door. In Korea, it really doesn't make a difference. You're not going to make a difference.
No, actually, it doesn't, because it's all water pipes in the floor.
Yeah, you're not going to make a difference in your heating bill if you open up the house. So it's okay to open up the house. At the same time, the practical thing, it reduces chance of disease. It really does clean the house out, and it gets rid of a lot of things, and it's practical. But
okay, well, maybe I will start doing this.
My resistance at first, thinking, oh, the locals, they I know better than the locals do. And I would say,
of course you do.
Yeah. My arrogance last year when coronavirus was starting, I was one of the people that was like, oh, well, masks don't really help. You can't really, and then.
I was like, mask up.
Oh, really? Yeah. I was one of the people that didn't. I thought, well, the science says it's not that effective. And then I changed my mind.
Yeah. Well, I have a younger sister who works in the medical field back in the States.
Yeah.
So, Korea was already encouraging us to wear masks. So I was like, hey, sis, masks. And she was just like, as long as everyone is wearing them, any mask is good.
Yeah. And that's where it was. That's where, because I was like, I used to say that with, as far as the yellow dust problem, that wearing a mask, unless you're wearing like a 3M mask used for air, for painting, it's not that effective. And that's still kind of true. But the purpose of wearing masks, like you just said, if everyone's wearing masks, it reduces the disease, and that I came around to that. Yeah, I came around to that. But again, it's another example of. I
can't believe it. I was immediately like on board masks.
Oh, really? No, it's another example of me being arrogant and saying, "Oh, well, I know better than my host country does," and then turns out, no.
No, you were so not. Mm-mm.
Yeah,
it's fine.
We're always growing. We're always learning.
We're always learning. We always admit when we're wrong. That's like the big thing. Be like, okay, this thing that I did or that I said, not right. Wear a mask.
Well, we want to remind everyone to watch the show, watch the movie. We're going to wrap up the show today. This was a good show.
Yes, because I feel like I need to go watch Minari.
You do.
And I feel like I'm probably going to cry a lot.
Of course, I cried everything. Yeah.
Yeah, well, me too. But I'm kind of homesick.
Oh, it's really going to make you
I'm
homesick.
really homesick.
It's going to make you homesick.
I'm really homesick for
Yeah.
being out in the country, especially the countryside of Oklahoma, because that's what I know the most.
Yeah, I think there's some
But
shots of Oklahoma City in this. Yeah.
And I miss, like, because I'm also from Northwest Arkansas, and my mother's family is from the Ozark Mountains in the southern part of Missouri.
Yeah.
Do you know how hard it was to say Missouri right then?
I know. You want to say Missouri? Yep.
Missouri. Oh, yeah. But yeah, so I'm homesick for the Ozark Mountains of Missouri and Northwest Arkansas.
Oh.
And I'm also homesick for Oklahoma. Just, being out in the middle of nowhere in the countryside, just being surrounded by cows and looking up and seeing all the stars, breathing the fire. I miss it. It's been 4 years since I've been back to Oklahoma. And I had a moment a couple weeks ago, a moment of weakness where I was like chatting with my little sister. I was like, is it crazy that I'm thinking I want to move back to Oklahoma? And she's like, yes. Even I'm in the States and I don't even want to go back.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, it's homesickness.
Yeah.
It's homesickness. I'm just homesick.
Yeah, you get back there and it'll cure you after a week. It will.
Yeah, I just need to go home and visit, because usually every time I go home, I give myself a week and a half. And then after like 4 days, I'm like, I need to get back to Seoul. So yeah, I just need to go out to the countryside.
Yeah, you just need to recharge your batteries.
Yeah. So I am like, anybody who has a car, let's like get a pension out in the country in Korea, just so I can like have like a middle of nowhere.
I'm hoping to do that
because I can't go back.
Yeah,
I want to do that. That's just what I need. I miss Oklahoma, but I can't go there right now. So I'm just like, I just need countryside.
Well, the Korean countryside is a great substitute, I think. Anyway,
it's beautiful.
Remind everyone you can catch us at SeoulPodcast.com, on Twitter at King Sejong, Facebook at Facebook.com/SeoulPodcast, and we're also on YouTube under Zen Kimchi. We are now experimenting with doing live shows. If you're listening to our podcast, you will find out if you go on Zen Kimchi and subscribe and hit the bell button, you will be notified when we're going to do a live show. Also, if you're following us on Facebook, you will know when we're doing a live show. We tend to do this we try to do them on Fridays around 7:30 or so. Depends.
Yes.
7:30 or 8.
Depends.
Yeah. But if we get more people following us live, and that way you can participate with us by in our chat room.
Yes,
live
participate, chat. We'll answer questions. We'll get a debate going.
And we'll respond.
That sounds great. I'm down for that. Let's do this.
We'll do shout outs. It'll be fun.
Yes, we will do shout outs, of course. Right. If somebody in the chat pops up, then I know I will definitely be like, hey, blah.
Oh, we also have a Patreon if anyone would, but
oh, right.
Yes. On Patreon.
Support us.
Yeah. Patreon.com/SeoulPodcast. You get some extra goodies on there. So everyone, thank you so much for listening. Emma, thank you. It's great to hear from you again. Great to see you.
I know.
And Pippin.
Pippin.
Until next time. Be safe out there.
Be safe. Bye. Love you guys. Mwah.
The Seoul Podcast is a production of Zen Kimchi International, copyright 2021, under the Creative Commons license. Parts of this podcast may be used for non-commercial purposes if you remember to give us credit. You can contact us at sejong@soulpodcast.com. That's SEJONG@soulpodcast.com. Follow us on Twitter at King Sejong and on Facebook at facebook.com/SeoulPodcast. For a transcript of this episode, listen to it again and write down what you hear. See you next week. Until then, may your favorite Wangmandu takeout place not close down, and become a sock store, and then close down and become a kimchi waffle hut, and then close down and become a GS25, and then close down and become a KT cell phone store, and then close down.